Hi, Cleo. Hi, Cosmo. Hi, Cleo pet. Nemo. Lil Boop. And Cosmo. What do you think, Cleo? Yeah, you're so cute. You're cute too, you dingus. Papa dog. You're gonna be famous. You're gonna be famous. You're bouncy. You're bouncy. Hey, Nemo. Woo woo woo. You dingus. What are they doing? I've had this snowmobile for a few years. I've never used it because, well, I'm stupid. We've been busy and never got around to it, but almost like clockwork, I can come up to this thing and it'll start almost every time. Let's see if it's still gonna do that. I think it's gonna go. I haven't cleaned the fuel. It's old. And it runs on both nonetheless. Guaranteed the carb needs a clean, but if I could ride it up to the shop, that would... You guys see what was happening there? Oh yeah. Oh, okay, that motor mount's fallen off. That's why this thing's not great. I can fix that. That's just one motor mount. Two motor mounts. There's one on this side too. Huh. There's a tie right here that was probably around this at one point to hold it down. I could ride this if I fixed that. That one there supposedly ran too, but it needs a carburetor boot, an intake boot. Okay, we might revisit this shortly here because we've actually got some snow that I can boot around on. Oh, I'm falling. It was nicely frozen to the ground. so it does run. There's a snake in my boot. So many dogs. Here's all the dogs. They're helping me with the sled. Hi guys. Here we have it. So the issue here is that there's a motor mount here and there's a motor mount in behind that are essentially non-existent. And that's not good for the engine. The positioning of the engine's incredibly important for the belt, because if it moves, you can see how the belt is moving with it. And it's actually currently touching the side. So we need to get this thing strapped back down so it can be happy in its spot. The ideal fix would be to buy new motor mounts, and I might do that, but we're gonna see if we can Redneck fix this thing first. Look at the redneckery going on. Someone's got 2 of these on here, but I think for the purpose of just this right now, I think it might just stay here because it's already in the position that it's gonna hold this guy in place. But the engine needs to move over just a hair for the belt alignment. That's pretty good where it is. Okay guys, I think a couple of hose clamps is even just a little bit too redneck for me. I didn't realize it had a little toolkit up here. What's in it? Oh, look at that, tools. Awesome. Well, that's good to know I've got that in here. I had no clue. Now we can figure out how to get this happy. So I've got a couple of options. I can replace the motor mounts, which would be the easiest by far, or I can try to redneck a system in here to hold this in place. Maybe along the lines of this somehow. I don't know. I'll come back with an update. Okay, let's see if we can get that off of here. So that's the problem we're having. The best way to fix it is probably just to replace it. I was gonna have a look to see if I could maybe drill a hole through it and just run a bolt through it all the way, but that might prove to be a little bit difficult. So I got this really skinny wrench, hoping I could maybe get the bottom one, but with this box in the way, it's a little bit difficult. And I don't see a way to pull the box out easily. It looks like it's welded in place. So I'm not 100% sure what we're gonna do to get that out of there. Oh, we're missing We're missing a bolt on the exhaust manifold. A little bit of oil down here. And that bolt explains it. So again, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't think I can drill that on the angle that it's on, and I don't know how to get it off. I got a shorter 17, maybe go in from the bottom side. Wow, they really give you no room to work with the engine in here. I was hoping not to pull the engine for this. She's tight, but I've got a good grip on that now. Impact wrench. Ouch. I don't think it worked. Why does that feel too small? It's a 17, right? Yeah. Cheap wrenches, it's either spreading a little bit or just not working in my favor. So I loosened all the engine mounts and I was able to move the engine over just a little bit. The belt looks a little bit happier where it's sitting now, so okay, yeah, what we're going to do next is just tighten it down where it sits, and I'm looking at the secondary clutch. It needs some parts. There's a washer that's missing, or a plastic slider or whatever it is that's missing entirely. Can you see up here? So in behind here there's some plastic dinguses, I'll show you in a second, that are missing from one of the 3 contact points, so that's going to cause me some issues in a little bit when I go to ride it, but what do I know? So it's just the motor mounts on the right side that are any good right now. Motor mounts are cheap, so I'm probably just going to buy some. Okay, those are tight again. I didn't loosen this side because they don't do anything, obviously. But if I can get a way to get this isolator stay where it is, we might be in rideable business for now, just till motor mounts come in. What we're gonna do is tie wire it for now. Mainly I just want to see if this thing's worth saving. And the way it's running and riding right now without any ability to hold the engine down, I'm thinking that it's maybe not the best for it. So we'll just get the engine held down securely, and then we can ride it around the yard quick and just make sure it's worth saving. There's some weird stuff with the clutch. It's missing a button, is what it's called, or a slider. This is a Skidoo, so things might be called a little differently. I'm used to Polaris's, and I'm able just to twist it like that. Okay, look how much more secure that engine is. And the belt actually looks like it's pretty happy where it sits, so that's cool. Still a little bit of movement. Add another one. Just for the record, I don't intend for this to be permanent, just for today's test drive. There's still a lot of movement, but it's way better. Believe it or not, tie wire is actually really tough. Tie wire, chicken wire, whatever you want to call this stuff. Okay, I think that's about as best as we're going to get it with tie wire. Let's try it out. That stand allows me to run it without it moving around, so we can test the belt. Might be out of gas. I think it's actually out of gas finally. The pumper's not even doing much. Oh yeah, that's a cool depth gauge, but it's definitely empty. Okay, we got fuel in it. Let's try this again. I dumped a few liters in it. It still doesn't show on here, so it must have been really empty. That in the way, but hey, look at that fuel again. Darn. So that's not good. The clutch is wobbling around big time because of those pieces that are missing in here. So in here, there's a plastic bushing right here, and there isn't one in there. But there is one here. So that's what's causing that clutch to wiggle around like a wet salmon. So that's all got to come apart to get replaced. I don't know how to tear it apart. I'm sure we'll figure it out when the time comes. Yeah, I tell you what, guys, I haven't really worked on many Skidoos like this, these old ones. No reason for that, just I haven't had many come into the shop, so let's see what we end up doing. But I don't really want to run it with that, I think they're going to call that a slide, a clutch slide or slider. So if I run it like that, what happens is this metal's rubbing on metal, and that's going to eat the clutch up. I can't tell if there's any damage already. Let's pry it apart and see. So yeah, there's clearly space for a bushing in there, because when I pry it apart, it doesn't really spring back into perfectly closed right away, so have to find out what it wants for that. And motor mounts, let's have a look at the undercarriage. Okay, so what we're looking for in here is wear on the sliders, which are the plastic guys that run along the rails. And I don't have any parts that are sticking through on the left side or the right side. So most of these actually do have a wear line on them. This one is definitely a little bit older and mangled to the point that I don't see a wear line on it. But that could be because of having aftermarket sliders on here, or maybe they're just not all that worn out. This sled has a lot of wheels in the skid here to keep the track from rubbing through, but the tension's set good. What I like to do is pretty much just be able to get one finger in there. If I can get two fingers in there, it's too loose. But one finger with a little bit of play seems to be pretty good for these sleds. That's pretty much all sleds. That's mountain sleds, trail sled. Your wife. If your track's too loose, it will ratchet, which means that the drivers up here will spin and the track won't. And it sounds like a ratchet clicking. It's not good for the sled. It doesn't usually wreck anything, but it's always good to leave your track just a little bit loose as well, instead of too tight. Because if it's a little bit loose, it spins freer, and it's not like you have more horsepower, but it feels like you have more horsepower. The undercarriage looks good. I'm just looking this rear bumper. The rear bumper is held on all the way up to here with bolts that are obviously under the seat, so I'll be able to put a decent amount of fuel on that. These guys here adjust the ride height when you're on it. They adjust the sag or the preload. So currently these springs are set in the softest position. So you grab this nut and you can turn it, and you see how this is a lot higher, this is medium, and this is a little bit less. But because I'm large, I'm probably going to click those into the high position. Let's just do that now. So we just take this with a big pair of, or a big crescent wrench or a big pair of pliers. And then we can just turn that when it has a good grip on the thing. Huh. Does it like turning the other way a little easier maybe? A little bit. Oh, so I was wrong. It was on the lowest setting. But you seen how that squished that guy up just a little bit? This is a 377 Electro, which I think that just meant that it's CDI ignition and not points in condenser. Wow, I might have to put something stronger on that than a crescent wrench here, but I'm just looking. Funny enough, this side now matches this side. And I'm also looking up here. This is really cool. know if you can see that from where you are. It's got another adjustment up front. That's really cool. So again, I haven't worked on a lot of trail sleds like this particularly. I personally haven't seen 4 coil springs on the bottom of one of these. That's cool. That gives you a lot of adjustment and a lot of feedback on the trails, being able to adjust those. So that's really nice. I'm noticing no shock up front. No shock up front, which is interesting, but there's a shock at the back. Cool. We're just gonna have a look inside the chain case for this fella. So inside here is a very long chain that goes from the bottom to the top, and it connects the engine through the belt system. This acts technically as your transmission, and it goes down and connects to the track. So that's where the drivers are. That can cause the ratcheting that I was briefly mentioning. I don't see a fill plug on this, and I don't see a fill level on this, and I don't see a dipstick on the end of this guy like I imagine there would be, so I can't see down in the hole either. If you run these dry, what tends to happen is the chain will stretch, and like the ratcheting I was talking about for the drivers and the track, the chain will start to skip and sort of ratchet as well. And that's detrimental very quickly, because if the chain is skipping, there's nothing in there that's going to stop a whole pile of metal flakes from getting thrown around, and it very quickly turns your day into a bad day. Ask me how I know. I've had that happen. Hopefully this fits. Really? Okay, same thing but different. Good. There's oil in it. It smells like just regular 80-90, which is 90% of the time what you find in Skidoos. They've got their own fancy synthetic blend, but if the oil's that deep, it's up to about halfway on the lower gear, which is a little bit overfull, so I'm curious if there's water in it. But for now, I think we're fine. I don't see any contamination really that I wouldn't expect, so I think we're okay. I'm gonna just put this back together, but I'm gonna call that fine for now. So our next step is going to be order parts, I think. What's going on with this sled? So I've had this sled for probably 4 years now. It was given to me in the condition it's in, and I parked it and I never looked at it. It got buried in snow, and here I am 3 years later. So we went through the sled. I've inspected it. The engine's in good shape. It sat for minimum 3 years. I'm gonna say even 4 years. I've never put fuel in it until today. It sat that whole time and it still flashed right up. The engine's in really good shape. The track is in really good shape. The undercarriage is in awesome shape. The sliders, the wheels, all of that checks out. Under the hood, we have a clutch problem, a major clutch problem. In the secondary clutch, or the driven clutch, we have a slider that is missing. On the engine side of things, we have 2 bad motor mounts. So I think what I'm gonna do is order parts for this, and in the next video you'll see me repair it. I'm just gonna leave this as a diagnostics video. Tune in next time on this guy to see how the repairs go. Okay, so that's where that's going to stay until I get the parts. So funny enough, that actually rides really good now. But we're still gonna fix it. So yeah, it runs up and down the road just fine. We're gonna get the clutch repaired. We're gonna get the motor mounts fixed, and we're gonna go for a ride next time. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. The snowmobile's ripping around in the background.